everybody? Welcome to BO Boys for Friday, January 27th. F it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat, and we're also keeping it clean, as you know from the last episode, because the kids are listening to this Greatest Showman-esque run for Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. But there is no big Puss in Boots level movie opening for kids. There is no big adult movie opening this weekend. There are some small movies, but I don't know, Clayton, nothing that's necessarily going to light the box office on fire this weekend. Am I wrong? Do you smell a hit of any of these new releases coming out?
I don't, but Pat, we have to start with a big retraction.
Yes.
So we got this from several sources.
Yes, both on emails and on our YouTube channel, which
smash
that like button and subscribe button down there. Yeah, but people reached out. What is the factual inaccuracy that you made on the last episode, Clayton?
Yes, and I will take all credit for this, or
Okay.
I guess blame, if
Yes.
you will, if you want to be judgmental about it.
Mm-hmm.
I read the Deadline article incorrectly. Nia Long does not star in Euphoria. It is actually Storm Reed from Missing, who is a Euphoria cast member. And I think that it is a good thing that I don't watch Euphoria and I make mistakes like that. Would you want your information from a grown man who watches Euphoria?
Right. Exactly. I think if anything, this was a test and the BO Boys passed the test. We don't watch Euphoria, which I hear is a show about teenagers who do drugs and have sex. We don't watch that show. We don't really know who's in the cast of that show.
Other than Zendaya.
But which is
and
just
Sydney Sweeney, because they are movie stars.
Exactly. It's just that information's in the ether, but we should not know backwards and frontwards the cast of Euphoria. If we did, I think that would be suspect. If the BO Boys knew everything there is to know about Euphoria, that is cause for concern. But we proved by you making that mistake last episode, we proved that we don't watch Euphoria, which is good for our reputation.
We can be trusted. We are of course Generation Girls.
Yes.
Definitely, if you want to know who was in the cast of Girls, come at us. But otherwise, we don't know Euphoria.
Yes, but I like to thank the Wanna Be O Boys, Wanna Be O Girls, Wanna Be O people who reached out to us, including Daryl. Daryl, thank you for emailing us about that. And of course, we always like getting emails at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. So thank you, Daryl, and other people pointed that out.
And Daryl even included a shot of the Wikipedia for Storm Reed for easy access. So thank you so much, Daryl.
So, I mean, just to stay on Missing for a second, I think that really does put a lot, even more of the credit for the opening weekend success of Missing on this lead, Storm Reed. The fact that we now know it's confirmed she is a star of Euphoria. She got that younger audience out there to the movie theaters. Her Euphoria stardom definitely brought some people out to this searching sequel.
And she's going to be in a show called The Last of Us, which I think is already premiered on HBO Max and doing good business over there. So listen, Missing again, if she's the lead in that, we might be talking even bigger box office.
Yep, definitely. And if Clayton was just factually inaccurate about Storm Reed being in the show The Last of Us, of course, reach out. Daryl, I know you're listening. I know you're ready with screenshots of IMDb pages and Wikipedia pages. So if Clayton screwed that one up, let us know. But Clayton, we're here to talk about this weekend's box office, the weekend of Friday, January 27th. And there's one, I would say, we'll start with the new release, which is a film called Infinity Pool.
Yeah. So this is Baby Cronenberg.
Yep.
David Cronenberg's son.
Yep.
And we
Brandon
were
goes by the name of Brandon.
Brandon, yeah. We saw his first movie, not his first movie, but he was on our radar from Possessor, which was a movie that we all watched on PVOD, I believe.
Yes, we did back in. This is a film, Possessor, that came out in October of 2020.
Wow, 2020.
So, but it did have 5 weekends in movie theaters. It opened on October 2nd, 2020. Of course, it was beaten those weeks by the juggernaut of October 2020, which was the original Hocus Pocus, was just dominating the box office. Possessor made a total of $746,000 at the box office. I'll admit, that is higher than I would have guessed. I'm looking at that stat now, and for that movie, which is a true hard horror movie, not even a horror movie. It's more of sci-fi splatter than I would say horror, but it is a movie that
it's what we call a Cronenberg movie.
It basically, yes, it is a Cronenberg movie, and Possessor did make almost $1 million at the height of pre-vaccine pandemic box office. So I guess that is a good sign for Infinity Pool, which is a movie that has a star in Mia Goth.
Oh, yeah. Pearl herself.
Pearl and X. I mean, she is for sure a popular actress, a known quantity. So you got Brandon Cronenberg, who I'm sure has a fan base, partially based on people who think that his dad is making this movie. And you got Mia Goth, who's red hot in this genre, coming off of X and Pearl in the same year. And horror is horror, I mean, even something like Missing, which is not a horror movie, but is a thriller. But, like this genre appeals to the young people. Skinamarink has made $1 million at the box office. And that's just, static shots of Legos. I love the film, but, that's what the movie is. Can Infinity Pool do some business this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, here's the question, because you got Mia Goth, you also have Alexander Skarsgård, who really isn't a box office draw. I mean, he was in The Northman, a movie.
He was The Northman.
Yeah, he was The Northman, a movie we both really liked, I believe, right? But only I saw in the theater.
Yes, I saw it on Peacock. I saw it on the Cock, yes.
Saw it on the Cock. So I don't know. That's negligible whether he's going to bring anybody. I do think the draw is Cronenberg and Mia Goth. Now, I have a question. Let's talk about Daddy Cronenberg.
Okay.
Mr. David Cronenberg put out a movie a little while ago. Fuck, it's raw feed. June 3rd, 2022.
So a summer release.
Summer release of Crimes of the Future. Now, this movie opened to $1.1 million. It only was in 773 theaters, though. And its cum is $2.4 million. Now, my question I posit to you is, do you think that Infinity Pool is going to have a bigger opening weekend than Crimes of the Future? Now, Infinity Pool is in 2,000 theaters. But this movie, Crimes of the Future, had a few more, I guess, Viggo Mortensen, who has had movies that did well in the theater. Kristen Stewart, who was kind of not really a going concern when it comes to the box office at this point.
But she's very famous.
And gosh, I can't say Lea Seydoux, who is also
Lea Seydoux, international star, French beauty.
Yeah. Blue is the warmest color, of course.
Sure is.
And she was in the Bond movies, correct?
She was in
one of the
Bond movies. Yes, I think she's one of the few Bond girls that that appeared in multiple movies. Yes.
Now, I would say this is a bigger star-studded cast for Crimes of the Future.
I agree, but here is where I think that Baby Cronenberg and Infinity Pool has the advantage
Over
is that
Daddy.
over Daddy is that Infinity Pool, at least in its marketing, at least in its trailer, looks like a thriller. It
Mm.
looks like a real movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure this movie will be totally off the rails. There will be body horror for sure. You know, it will be Cronenbergian. But the trailer really does sell it as here's a murder mystery. Here is a movie about people in a foreign country and they're in over their heads. And I think it just seems, at least on the surface, at least on opening weekend, to be very commercial Cronenberg.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will predict that Infinity Pool, you know, riding Mia Goth, riding a commercial seeming trailer, will in its opening weekend make more than Crimes of the Future did in its entire run. I
All
think Infinity
right.
Pool could make $3, maybe $4 million this weekend.
Now, the other thing that Infinity Pool has going for it is, if you've seen the previews,
Mm-hmm.
there's masks in it,
Yes.
and some of them look to be animal masks.
Mm-hmm.
And animal masks are one of those things that seems to drive people to the theater. I mean, you've got
Yes.
something like Your Next, which
Yes.
heavily had animal masks in it. I
Yep.
believe The Purge is a movie that had various masks, but
Various
also had
masks.
animal masks.
Yes. Yes.
So it's got that going for it. So I think the animal mask situation is something not to be slept on.
Yeah. It wasn't an animal mask, but think of the Black Phone this past summer. And that mask, I would say, sold 30 to 40 million dollars worth of the 90 million domestic that the Black Phone made. That
Well,
mask was huge. And I don't think that Infinity Pool has a Black Phone level mask. It does not have the Grabber, which was the main character of the Black Phone. I don't think it has that level of a mask, but I do think these masks will help for sure. That's a great call.
okay, but so you think that this movie is going to make maybe 3 or 4?
Yeah.
It looks like it's tracking around 2
I
or
think it's going to do
so.
higher than that. I think this is a movie that will fall off a cliff in its second weekend, especially once people actually go to it. And there is, I haven't seen this film, but again, I assume there is lots of body horror in this film. There'll be
Mm-hmm.
fingernails being peeled off, or, you know, skin will become soup, or whatever Baby Cronenberg comes up with, you know, eyeballs will turn into feet, something like that. But
Yes, that will
none,
definitely happen.
almost guaranteed, but none of that body horror is in the trailer. I think the
Mm-hmm.
trailer promises a old-fashioned thriller with a good-looking cast and Mia Goth and the Northman Sarsgaard, and a foreign location and some intrigue, and they hid the body horror.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unlike something like Crimes of the Future, where the body horror was up front.
Yeah.
And I think they've done a good job hiding the body horror in Infinity Pool.
The thing with David Cronenberg is that you know what you're going to get with him. He doesn't have to prove anything to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Brendan Baby
Yeah.
is trying to make a go of it and sell himself. I mean, Cronenberg sells himself in the sense of you're gonna sign up for whatever craziness to whatever level it is. But Brendan is a guy who is trying to make a name, so he has to market his stuff more commercially. It feels like.
Yeah. So I think there's a good chance that there'll be an opening weekend hoodwinking of the audience, which you gotta, you know, listen, whatever it takes to sell that popcorn.
But hoodwinking doesn't work anymore because by Thursday night, people are going to know if it's if eyeballs turn into feet. So they're going to either say yes or no to that.
I think you could hoodwink for a couple of days on the opening weekend.
I don't know. It's hard to hoodwink nowadays with Twitter. Twitter
Yeah,
makes it hard to hoodwink an
well,
audience.
but
You can
not
hoodwink
everyone's
on
on
other
Twitter.
subjects.
Not everyone's
but
on Twitter. The
that,
amount of people who are on Twitter is
but I would
is
say
much less than you would think based on the
But
how
Pat,
the news portrays it.
would you not say that most likely a good number of people who would go see Infinity Pool are on Twitter?
But I think the reason that this could overperform opening weekend is it'll get people who aren't just the Cronenberg fans or the Twitter people. It'll get just your everyday audience who saw a trailer, were good-looking people, are in a thriller. And I think they might not find out about the eyeballs turning into feet until after they bought their Saturday night tickets. So
well, I'm saying 2.
We'll see.
I think this will make $2 million.
I'm going to go 3.5.
Okay. Well, we both don't think it's going to make the top 5.
I guess not. Well, let's talk. There are some other things opening this weekend. That's the quote unquote big one is Infinity Pool, but there is also a new Left Behind film coming out this weekend as a Fathom event, and it is called Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist. So
it's in 1,700 theaters.
Yep. That which is a lot of theaters are showing this. That's a pretty big number for a Fathom event. So this I'm seeing, it seems like this is the 4th film in the official Left Behind film series. So we're not counting the Left Behind film that Nicolas Cage starred in 2014. We're going back to the original Left Behind series that Kirk Cameron starred in.
Mm-hmm.
And that film series started in 2000. There was a sequel, Left Behind 2 Tribulation Force, which came out in 2002, and it looks like it was mostly a direct-to-video film. And then there was something called Vanish, Left Behind Next Generation, which came out in 2016, and apparently was well received by the author of the book, so that's always nice. And now we have Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist, and it is starring and directed by Kevin Sorbo. So Hercules TV guy, Kevin Sorbo, is the star.
Yeah.
Do we feel like that it means anything to modern movie theater audiences?
Well, Kevin Sorbo has had success in this area with religious films.
Yep.
So I mean, I wouldn't count it out. I mean, Box Office Pro is saying it's looking at like 1.8 million.
Okay.
And I trust that. I feel like this feels musty to me. You know, there's been a lot of Left Behind. I just, there's something about this that doesn't feel like it's going to break out in any way. Like The Chosen feels like new, fresh, hot, religious content.
Right.
And Left Behind feels like your father's Christian content. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So I just don't see this breaking out. I think it'll make, maybe, 1.5, something like that. But I don't think this is going to be like threatening for a top 5 slot.
Yeah. I think the Nick Cage movie maybe tainted this Left Behind series. As much as a series that originates with Kirk Cameron as the lead can be tainted, I do think that film was so widely panned that even though it's Kevin Sorbo taking over, he's taking over a damaged movie brand. And I'm looking at Kevin Sorbo's box office history, and he really hasn't had a true hit since 2014. God's Not Dead made $60 million. And since then, none of his movies domestically have made, well, he had Let There Be Light 2017 made $7 million, and Oh, he did. No, I mean, listen, he did have a film last year that made 3.1 million, The Girl Who Believes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, Kevin Sorbo is still a draw within this genre.
Now,
And I get rebooting the Left Behind series with him. You've got to try, it's
well, now this is another thing. Now, people may be able to follow this if they're Left Behind fans,
right.
but I'm on the Left Behind wiki,
Okay.
and it's saying here, Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist
Okay.
is based on Nikolai, The Rise of Antichrist by the original authors of the book. It's the third book in the Left Behind series. It's saying it is a direct sequel to Left Behind from 2014, which is the Nicolas Cage version.
Interesting.
But this has an entirely different cast.
So
So it is in the Nicolas Cage timeline of Left Behind,
not the Kirk Cameron Left
not
Behind
the Kirk
timeline.
Cameron. So again, we are not the audience for this. So our confusion is founded, I believe.
Yes. Much like Euphoria.
Yeah.
We're not the audience for Euphoria. We're not the audience for Left Behind. I'd love to see the Venn diagram of those two audiences, of which maybe one of our listeners falls right in there, that they are fans of both. Who knows?
But are we getting into the Halloween situation here where it's like this one doesn't, these don't count, and now we're doing it again where this doesn't count? This seems like a barrier of entry for anybody other than hardcore Left Behind people who
Right.
I do, like I said, they feel like your dad's friends.
Yeah. I mean, the Left Behind series, I can't fault them for rebooting this.
Mm-hmm.
You got to try. I mean, as musty as it may be, it's one of the most known IPs in Christian fiction.
I
For
mean,
sure.
we know about it.
Everyone knows about it. So you've got to keep trying. But it is sort of the way they keep trying to make Predator movies.
Yeah.
And the only real hit Predator movie was really the first one.
Yes.
And but then every time a Predator sequel, listen, Prey ended up being good. So maybe eventually you'll get your.
But it's Streamo.
But
We
it
don't
was
know how
Streamo.
it would have done at the box office.
But I think I get why they keep trying with these Left Behind movies. And listen, we're always in favor of the Fathom event. So
yeah. I mean, they're in and out. This is gonna be a weekend. It's in and out.
yeah. So you're going.
I'm going low on this though.
Okay.
I'm saying it's like it might make 1.5.
Well, okay. Well, what do you think makes more this weekend? Infinity Pool.
Oh, Infinity Pool, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'd go there too. But this will be a good, I guess a good test of, of these audiences, Infinity Pool versus Left Behind, and we'll have the results on Monday. So very exciting. See what comes out ahead. Cronenberg versus Christ this weekend at the movie theater.
This is big. Now, the one other thing we need to talk about before we get to, I think, the juggernauts that continue to rack up money, the Avatar, The Way of Water, your Puss in Boots, your Megan, your A Man Called Otto. We have some Oscar films that are getting wider re-releases because of the Oscar nominations. And Pat, if someone was looking to listen to a podcast about the Oscars and awards betting, can you think off the top of your head of one?
So I've got a recommendation. If you love the Oscars and you're a degenerate gambler seeking to throw more of your money on bets, then the recommendation is you got to listen to a little show called The Show Me the Money, hosted by Nick Turner, box office star of the summer of 2020, and myself, Pat Stango. We host the Show Me the Money on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, and we are taking it all the way to the Academy Awards in March. Every week, we talk about what you could bet on online as it relates to all of these award shows, the SAGs, the PGAs, the Indie Spirits, and then the Oscars. So listen to wherever you listen to the BO Boys. you could search and find the Show Me the Money. It is the only podcast that talks about the Oscars and gambling and is hosted by myself and Nick Turner.
I'm an ex-host, current frequent guest.
Yeah.
If you have a gambling problem, call 1-878-HOPE-NY. That's 1-878-HOPE-NY.
Is that the number?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
If you're in the New York area. If you're somewhere else, Google it.
Google it. I mean, the main thing is I think just Google gambling where if you have a gambling problem, and I'm sure there'll be some information.
Gambling help. Well, gambling
help.
Help
Yes.
lines will probably give you lines for
Yes.
bets.
Right. But just Google it. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Google
So
it.
anyway, speaking of these Oscar films,
Yes.
The Banshees of Inisherin
Yes.
is now going to be in 1,200 theaters.
Wow.
Elvis, 900 theaters.
Wow.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, 1,500 theaters. The Fabelmans, 2,000 theaters. Living, 700 theaters. Tar, 600 theaters. Top Gun Maverick, 500 theaters. And Women Talking is expanding to 700 theaters. So, out of these, Pat,
Yes.
which one, and I don't think any of these are going to make the top 10.
Okay.
I'm not top 10. I'm sorry, top 5. None of them are going to make top 5.
Right. I mean, Avatar Way of Water is going to be number one.
Well, I didn't mention that because it's up there, and it's like, it got it's still the reigning champ, and it's going to be number one. So I didn't even put that in my list.
Yeah.
Of all of these Oscar movies
Mm-hmm.
that are being re-released, which one do you think has the most likelihood to have some box office impact?
So what's going to get the biggest bump out of these Best Picture noms? I mean, I think the two candidates, possibly three candidates, I think Women Talking, because it is the movie that has been in theaters for the shortest amount of time. I think it's really only been in theaters maybe for 2 weekends at this point, other than a qualifying run in December. And I think that getting a Best Picture nom should help it. And I think the Fabelmans, it's now or never time for the Fabelmans. I think this is an important weekend for Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans because it got the Best Picture nom. It got the Best Director. There was a lot of press about the Fabelmans. Michelle Williams got in there. Judd Hirsch, maybe people are going to say, I got to see this Judd Hirsch scene that got him a supporting actor nom. So I think that the two movies with the most to gain this weekend are The Fabelmans and Women Talking. And it's a real put up or shut up weekend for The Fabelmans specifically. I think this has got to be the weekend where we start to see people really discovering that film.
I agree.
Last weekend it came in number 12. It made $438,000 in 950 theaters. So if it's getting a bump of 1,500 theaters and it got the Best Picture nom, this movie's got to make over $1 million this weekend.
What about Living, starring apparent national treasure Bill Nighy? To some people, he never meant S to me.
My co-host on the Show Me the Money, Nick Turner, he's a big Bill Nighy guy. He wanted to be woken up at 5:00 in the morning LA time when Bill Nighy got the Oscar nomination. We forgot to do it, but that is what he wanted. I don't think Living's really going to get much of a bump because it's not a Best Picture nominee. And Bill Nighy is not a big famous star who got a Best Actor nomination. So I don't think that, I really do think it's Women Talking and The Fabelmans that would get the biggest bump. I mean, Banshees of Inisherin, I know this movie's been on HBO for over a month now, and a lot of people have been watching it there. Do we think that it does anything this weekend?
I think at this point, I'll be honest with you, it's been on. It's such an easy watch on HBO Max.
Yeah.
I feel the same way with Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie's so available at home. Elvis is so available at home. The ones that aren't are Women Talking and The Fablemans. Like, I do
Yeah.
think Women Talking is probably going to do the best out of this bunch. Pat, nobody wanted to see The Fablemans. It had its shot. It definitely does not matter that this got nominations because people already assumed that it was going to win Best Picture when it was released,
I
and they
don't know.
didn't care.
I think that the assumption is by the people who are really deep into Oscar talk. And when the nominations actually come out, that is for a lot of people the first time they even think about the Academy Awards is on nominations day.
I've
Eh,
heard though, I'm around some quote unquote normies,
okay.
and when Fablemans came out, everybody was like, "That's gonna win an Oscar, right?" These are normies. These are people that are just not like tapped in to the Oscars in any real genuine way other
Where
than
where are you meeting these quote unquote
a
normies
place of
though?
employment.
But that place of employment is in a very hip neighborhood. I don't want
Don't
to
be
give away
specific.
I don't want to give away your specific neighborhood where you're employed, but it's one of the hipper neighborhoods in Brooklyn.
Well,
And
okay, you wish you wouldn't have said. You could have said just New York City.
I think that the people who you think are normies are actually the smaller percentage of people who are more plugged into the Academy Awards conversation. I think that your Plain Billies, your Stax Dwellers, your Earth Dogs, those people are not thinking about the Oscars until the nominations come out. And therefore, I think Tuesday night, Entertainment Tonight covered here's all the Best Picture nominees. And there's a lot of people in the stacks who, for the first time, thought, oh, The Fablemans is up for Best Picture. I should go see that. And so
Okay,
that could happen this weekend.
so let's look at Fableman's what its biggest day or day has been, or
But
biggest weekend.
I mean, listen, this is a movie that has not ever been in that many theaters. This is going to be the most amount of theaters it has been in. Well, I guess it did have yeah, its theater count has never been higher than 1149.
Okay, so it's getting more.
This is a significant bump.
You know what I'm going to say, and listen, we're not happy about it as awards prognosticators and fans of awards, but the movie that's been the strongest, and I think will continue to be the strongest, is The Whale, which has been able to expand to 1,400 theaters, 1,700 theaters.
But it didn't get a Best Picture nom nom nom.
It doesn't matter. I still think he's in the running. The young lady who played his friend in this got a supporting actress. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting her name at the moment. She was spectacular in it. She was one of the bright spots. Hong Chow. She was one of the only bright spots in that film. Not that I'm a critic, huh? But this movie is Box Office Pro is projecting that it's going to be at 15 million by the end of Sunday. That's a hefty amount of money for that film. So that is probably the movie. The Box Office Pro is saying that The Whale is going to make 1.1 million. Do you see any of these other movies, Women Talking, The Fablemans, making that much this weekend?
I mean, Women Talking is going to be in about 3 times the amount of theaters. It made 380,000 last weekend. Can it make 1 million? I mean, again, I think this is put up or shut up weekend for both of them. I think The Fablemans and Women Talking both could make $1 million this weekend. I do.
But do they make more than The Whale?
I think The Whale's going to take a dip. It didn't get the Best Picture nom nom nom. I think The Whale could fall under $1 million this weekend.
I think The Whale is going to get its tail wet, and I think it's going to make more than both of those films.
All right. Well, you know what? We'll see on Monday. But I'm going to go with Fablemans and Women Talking as the movies that have the most potential upside this weekend out of the Oscar movies. I think they could finally do some business.
All right. Well, here we go. So, Pat, before we go, we need to talk a little bit about Regal
Okay.
because we talked about last episode that Regal was closing a bunch of theaters.
Right. And so we're going to get some more reports from individual theaters. We haven't gotten any confirmation from the Regal in Union Square. We of course want our listeners to reach out to their local theaters. So we need more time on the boots on the ground reporting about these theaters. But Clayton, there is some news about Regal's parent company, Cineworld. Do you have that news in front of you?
I don't. Do you?
I do. So
Great.
Regal parent company Cineworld, and this is from a Deadline article just yesterday. Regal parent Cineworld said it's opted to pursue a sale of assets, and the process is well underway with non-binding bids due February 16th. So basically, Regal's parent company is possibly looking to sell assets, which assets are movie theaters. Assets may be all of Regal in the United States. And it's got feelers out and it's having talks. And this article does mention that one of the companies that it did have talks with was AMC. And those talks have concluded. I don't think anything has come of that, apparently. But listen, you got to figure that other big movie chains make the most sense if a company was to acquire Regal. So AMC still makes a lot of sense. There's other movie chains that could be interested. And who knows? We've talked about this in the past. It is now legal for movie studios to own movie theaters. So there is that chance out there that maybe a movie studio like Disney just really goes all in and buys movie theaters. Now I think Disney wouldn't make a lot of sense because Disney seems to be the studio that was getting out of the theatrical game the most. But now that Bob Iger is back and Bob Chapstick is gone, who knows? Maybe Disney decides to buy Regal. Who knows?
Well, now let me throw this across the batter's box here and see what you think. If this is a strike or whatnot.
Right.
What if this was Disney's plan all along to weaken theaters at a time when COVID was ravaging them?
Right.
And keeping, Pixar movies out of there and driving everybody to streaming to drive down the price to make it so that Regal or their parent company had to file for bankruptcy so that they could buy it in a fire sale. Is that a possibility? Is that conspiratorial thinking? It is. But is it possible? It's definitely possible because then they're buying the means of distribution.
Yep.
And the only place you can see there, not the only place, but you can see a premium Disney film at these theaters now that are Disney theaters. And like I've always pitched, you got the Muppets behind the counter making popcorn.
Yep.
I mean, that IP, other than to use Kermit to wipe down Iger's yacht to buff his yacht with Fonzie or whatever. The other use for them is put them behind the counter, have them sell red vines, right?
Yeah.
Was it the plan all along, just to weaken theaters to the point where they could just buy them up?
This is a conspiracy theory, but it is a conspiracy theory that we talked about on this very show probably as far back as spring and summer of 2020. We threw out there that the studios might be shortchanging the movie theaters so they could drive down the price, buy them, and then they run the movie theaters themselves. Very possible. I don't know if that was a plan of Disney then, because Bob Chapstick being in charge of Disney during the pandemic box office era and the post-pandemic box office era, he was just a buffoonish CEO
Mm-hmm.
who did not think theatrical mattered. So I don't think he ever had a long-term plan to buy studios, but Bob Iger loves buying stuff.
Oh yeah, I
And
mean
he
this
bought
could be his
Marvel,
biggest purchase ever.
he bought Marvel, he bought Star Wars. So if he buys Regal, and then every premium Regal screen is only going to Disney movies. All the 4DXs are just Marvel and Disney animated movies. It's
Yeah.
possible. I mean,
I mean, they would still sell their product to AMC as well, but
of course,
it wouldn't be,
but
you know,
Regals are going to favor the Disney movies if Disney buys Regal, which is a
yeah,
conspiracy theory that we've been throwing out there for almost 3 years now.
yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who buys this. I mean, there's always the chance that it's just some stockbrokers pull some money together and they buy Regal and they strip it for parts and they just have parties in the Regal theaters and then they sell it off. They sell the chairs. Who knows? That could happen. That would be the worst case scenario. Hopefully an entertainment conglomerate buys these Regals and keeps them as Regal movie theaters.
yeah,
So we'll be following that story.
yeah. And I mean, these Regal closings, we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of it. We're gonna figure out whether the Union Square one is actually closing. Um, Chris H.
Yep.
He was not BO boy intern Christopher.
Mm-hmm. Different Christophers.
Different Christophers. Chris H. sent us an
Mm-hmm.
email last week that we said we'd get to, or like 6 days ago, which is almost a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
about some closings. He's saying the Gallery Place Chinatown location in DC is closing, and the only other multiplex is an AMC in Georgetown, which attracts different demos,
Mm-hmm.
and it's more people from the burbs and things like that. So it's a different experience. And then he said the Charlottesville, Virginia location is closing, and that's where his mom lives.
Okay.
And he says it's a really vibrant area. It's a nice theater in a fairly recently built shopping and dining area. And the other two theaters are not multiplexes. So that closing is going to be a big blow for that area. So these closings are going to affect people,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we're lucky because we're in New York, so we can go to
Right.
several other theaters, but there are places, and these are major centers. These are not like
Mm-hmm.
this is not the middle of Plain Billy country.
Right. Right.
These are city centers where people used to go to theaters and movies, and now there's just not going to be one within a reasonable distance from their home and where they shop. So that's going to be a huge blow to a lot of moviegoers.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary times for movie fans and theater goers. And of course, thank God we have this place to all congregate and keep each other safe in these tough times of movie theater closings. But there are places where when the Regal closes, that community is in a movie desert. And
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to many dangerous outcomes in the future. It leads to people who no longer think about movies as a theatrical experience at all. It just sends them to streaming only.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids who no longer have movie theaters to go to, who knows where they spend that time instead? They're not in a movie theater. That means they're just wandering the streets, getting into God knows what.
Or they're in
So,
alleyways or pool halls.
right, right. And you've also got people whose diets consist mostly of movie theater popcorn and Mike and Ike's. And if the movie theater closes, then their entire diet, all of their food sources are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that person eat? Where do they get their calories? Where
They
do
wouldn't
they
even know where to go.
Right. So there are lots of dangers and bad outcomes that could happen when these Regals close and communities become movie theater less. And
Now,
reach out to us. Reach out to the BO Boys podcast at gmail.com. or if you're watching us on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, smash that like button, and reach out to us in those ways, because we want to be there for you if you find yourself in one of these movie theater deserts.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Pat, before we go, we got to do our top fives. And it looks like these top fives are going to consist of movies that have already been out
Yeah.
for at least a week. So,
Do we
what?
go top 10 this weekend just for the sake of getting in these possible new movies? I'm going to go 10. I'm going to start off here. All right. So Avatar Way of Water, slam doink. It'll be 7 weekends in a row at number 1. Possibly this is the last weekend where Avatar Way of Water is number 1.
Because what? What is that?
There's a knock.
Where?
And it's at the cabin door.
All right.
Next weekend.
There we go.
So that could be the one that dethrones Avatar, but not this weekend. Avatar will be number 1. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish is going to be number 2. And man, oh man, I'm so tempted
I know,
to predict Puss in Boots
too.
going ahead of Way of Water, but it's not going to happen.
It's not going to. No, because it's got PLFs and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
Avatar's got the PLFs, but
what a story that would be. What a story that would be. But it's
one
not...
more week. One more week, and there wasn't a knock on the cabin door.
Yeah.
I think Puss in Boots goes over A Way of Water.
It's just Avatar Way of Water is not dropping that much week to week.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but neither is Puss in the Boots.
Puss in Boots is definitely now dropping at a lower percentage every week than Way of Water, but I feel like
money is.
Yeah, it's too far apart. But number 2 will be the Puss in Boots. Number 3 is going to still be Megan. Number 4, I'm going with A Man Called Otto is going to pull ahead of Missing.
Okay.
Number 5 then will be the second weekend of Missing.
Okay.
All right, so now here's where we get into some dangerous territory. I think number 6 will once again be Plane, Gerard Butler. Number 7 is going to be Infinity Pool.
Okay.
Will be number 7. And then number 8 is going to be Left Behind, Antichrist is going to be number 8. And then I'm going with number 9 is going to be The Fabelmans, and number 10 is going to be Women Talking. They're getting in the top 10. That time I got reincarnated as a slime, that movie's fallen out of the top 10. And so was House Party.
Wow, so you just went there, you went all the way just to get The Fabelmans is what you're doing.
I got The Fabelmans and Women Talking in the top 10.
Okay, all right. Well, that's not going to happen. So number 1, Avatar, slam doink. Number 2, Puss in Boots. I think it's going to have another insane hold.
Mm-hmm.
A Man Called Otto, I think, is going to be number 3
Mm-hmm.
over Megan.
Okay, interesting. You know what? I think that's a good call. I should have said that. That's a great call.
So then we've got Megan at number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Number 5 is going to be Missing.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 is going to be Plane.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7, I think, is Infinity Pool.
Agreed there.
And you know what? Number 8, I'm going to say, is The Whale.
Wow, you're big on The Whale.
Number 9 is going to be Left Behind, Rise of the Antichrist.
Okay.
And then I think Women Talking is going to be number 10. No Fabelmans.
No Fabelmans. All right.
It will continue to be the lowest grossing film that Spielberg has ever directed.
I mean, listen, The Fabelmans has been out since November. Women Talking definitely has a big shot to do some business this weekend. It's only been out 3 weeks. It got the best picture, nom, nom, nom. It's getting the theater count bump. It's time for these women to not just talk, but to yell, to be heard.
Well, Pat, that movie has the Pat Stango seal of approval.
One of my top films of the year.
Not that we're critics, huh?
Huh.
All right. Well, we did it, Pat.
We did it.
We talked 10. We went all the way to 10 so you could mention the Fablemans.
Yeah.
Okay.
So email us, theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. Reach out if you're, if you have a gambling habit, call one of those hotlines or Google gambling helplines. But if you are upset about a local Regal closing, reach out to us at theboboyspodcast@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube. So go to our YouTube channel. The link is in the description of this podcast episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, pointing down, smash all of those buttons.
Smash it.
Follow us on social media, specifically on Twitter at the BO Boys Pod. Want to BO intern Christopher doing a great job with the video clips and providing content there. We also, little sneak preview, this episode is not going to be available for a while because Want to BO intern Christopher is editing it himself, but we just before we got on air here, recorded a special episode of the BO Boys that was the brainchild of Want to BO intern Christopher. So look for the BO Boys Court with Judge Clayton. Special episode coming to the podcast and to the YouTube channel sometime soon. Undated as of now, but it's coming.
TBD.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Great stuff. Kid's a talent. He's going places.
Yeah.
So, Pat, I think we did it. I don't think there's anything left to say.
No.
Except until next time.
We'll smell you at the